And welcome back. This is video 4, Dry Fire Training Series. This time I'm going to be going over basically a visual listing, although maybe not comprehensive, of common equipment that is used for dry fire practice. And I'll be going through the exercises that are commonly used with such equipment. I'll try to demonstrate it for you. I'm also going to try to slide over a little bit, and as I go through, I'll be showing you the actual pieces of equipment, perhaps up on the screen as well as what I might be holding over here. Let's first take a second. I want to point out that the equipment that I list today may sometimes mention the actual brand name, model, and manufacturer. I am in no way receiving any payment for such an endorsement. In fact, I'm not even endorsing it. I'm only trying to offer a list of such equipment. I might list a bunch of laser cartridge manufacturers so you know how to find them online and what to look for. I'm not getting paid for any of this. I just, as far as listing all the manufacturers, I eventually hope to get paid for the training, but I'm not getting paid for endorsing or recommending any of these pieces of equipment. I'm just trying to list common ones that I'm aware of. If anybody knows of others that are out there, I'll try to add them, but if I left you out as a manufacturer of dry fire equipment, I apologize. I wasn't aware of your equipment package software combo in the making or timing of this video. Okay, now that disclaimer is out of the way, let's go on now. 21st Century Minuteman Dry Fire Series, Video 4. Let's first stop and look at our 3 rules of gun safety. Number 1, keep your barrel pointed in a safe direction, always. Number 2, always keep your finger off the trigger until you are actually ready to shoot. That means you're already on target, you've acquired your target, you have your sighting the way you like it. Now it's okay to fire the shot. And number 3, keep your gun unloaded until ready to use. Basically, all these things come down to treat the firearm like it's loaded, even when you know it's not loaded, and that way there's less of a chance of things going wrong. Now, that being said, let's look at some basic equipment for dry fire. Well, hey, first thing you're going to need is some form of pistol or something shaped like a pistol to practice dry firing with a pistol. It might be as simple as a blue gun or a plastic dummy gun. It might be something using airsoft or a pellet gun. This one happens to use a CO2 cartridge with 6mm airsoft pellets, and that's good for dry fire practice, even though with the ammo discharge. A small amount of recoil is available on some of them, but not all. You could go another direction and get what's called a laser trainer. Now, CERT, made by Next Level Training, happens to be the one that I own, but there are other manufacturers as well that make a laser trainer. And you can see here, I've got a little laser coming out here. Okay? And in addition, there's a second laser on this, which I can use in order to see if I'm using, you'll notice now there's 2. I got a bottom laser over here and a top laser up here. I got 2 of them. I'll probably just, you can see both of them here. There we go. So one's just a take-up laser, and that comes on when you've taken up the slack on the trigger before firing the shot. So those are things you can use for training. I use CERT training in my classes, but there are other trainers available that make laser trainers. That's perfectly cool. Next, you can actually go with an actual pistol. And with an actual pistol, for example, this here is a Sig Sauer 365 chambered in .380. Taurus G3C chambered in 9mm. Here's a shield made by Smith & Wesson, also chambered in 9mm. So these pistols are all things that could be used for dry fire. What's important to remember is to make sure they're cleared and have no ammo anywhere on the table or in the area you're practicing to ensure the ammunition doesn't make its way into the actual pistol. Some pistols are more appropriate for this or not, depending upon how you want to use them. For example, the G3C happens to have a resettable trigger. So I'm going to eject the magazine. I'm going to lock my slide back, and now I can inspect my chamber. I can see there's no ammunition inside the chamber, and I know there's nothing in the magazine because there's no magazine. I have a thoroughly cleared pistol. An advantage of this pistol is that once I fire a shot, I can fire another one, and another one, and another one without having to operate the slide to reset the striker. It has a resettable trigger. This is fantastic for work with a laser trainer because you can fire multiple shots without having to operate the slide. If you don't have that, then you will end up having to use slide operation. You might fire a shot with, for example, I'm going to clear my 9mm. There we go, cleared chamber, cleared magazine, let it go. I can fire a shot. Now I can't fire another shot because the slide hasn't moved. I've got to actually pull the slide back a bit and then let it go. When instructing people, I've discovered some people have a habit of pulling the slide all the way back out of habit and then fire a shot. If you pull the slide all the way back with a regular magazine, your slide locks back because the follower inside the magazine, this little shelf is pushing up on the slide stop, preventing the slide from returning the battery. So if you're going to do that, what's best to do is to create a practice magazine. All you got to do is take the base cap off the bottom of the magazine, take out the spring and the follower, put the base cap back on, and now you have an empty shell of a magazine. What's the advantage of that? Watch this. Now the magazine, the slide can return forward into battery even though the magazine is there because there's no follower. So I can pull this back all I want and it doesn't stop the slide from returning. So when I'm instructing someone and they pull the slide back too far, it doesn't lock the slide back. That way they don't have to keep ejecting the magazine, let go of the slide, and repeat the process over and over again if they happen to pull the slide back too far. And that's something you can easily do. All right, so that's basic equipment as far as the pistols is concerned. But you can, again, magazines. You can load the magazines with dummy ammo, so you can practice loading magazines, unloading magazines, taking them in and out of the actual pistol for doing tactical reloads. That's all things you can do with dry fire practice. Dummy rounds for 9mm would look like this. This is a dummy 9mm round, and it simply fits right into the actual magazine. So if I take my 9mm mag from my Shield version 1, which is a single stack, I can just put the round right in, and the rounds fit in. Like that. And you can load more in. You can practice with that. I've actually mixed live ammo and dummy rounds at the range to try to get people to understand the idea of shot anticipation. Now, I mentioned laser trainers earlier. There's a laser trainer. It looks a little bit like an actual cartridge. There's a cartridge down here. I'll try to hold it in such a way you can see it a little better. There's a cartridge, a dummy round that is, and that's the actual laser cartridge. It's rigged with a rubber pad at the back being over here, and when the striker hits a firing pin, a laser comes out of this end. Now it's not a long-term laser beam, it's just a quick laser burst, just enough to show you where you are aiming on a target. So you can use various types of laser trainers in your real pistols. Again, sometimes you may have to work the slide, or in the case of the one I showed you earlier, the Taurus GC3, which I'm not getting paid for the endorsement here, it's just operating the trigger because the trigger is resettable in that particular pistol. They designed it like that in order to be able to try to, once again, fire a round that maybe doesn't go off the first time. If the primer didn't detonate, you can just try a second shot with the same round instead of just ejecting it. That's what they say they designed it that way for. Now, laser trainers, how to look for them? Well, you could use G-Sight, Pink Rhino, Laser Light, Laser Hit, Strikeman, iDryFire, Mantis X. These are all software packages combined with hardware to assist you in dry fire training. Mantis X has an additional tool, which is a type of motion detector, which attaches to the pistol and detects the slightest amount of movement in any direction, and even gives you real-time feedback via an app on your phone connected Bluetooth to the device attached to your gun that shows you the movement. And you can look at the movement in different ways. Here's some screenshots showing what it looks like. And this also helps you to isolate movement and eliminate movement, at least reduce it, while you're dry fire practicing, which will carry across to real-time shooting later on. All right, so examples of dry fire exercises. Well, the first one would be knowing how to clear your weapon. You get your weapon, you've got to know how to eject your magazine, of course keeping your finger indexed on the side. Once that's done, knowing how to lock your slide back, and then being able to inspect the chamber to make sure that it is in fact cleared of any ammunition, and you can see the magazine chamber is also empty. This video is not intended to show you how to lock your slide back. That's a basic safety class. This is dry fire training. I'm assuming you already know how to lock your slide back. If you don't, you can find something online or reach out to me and I'll help you with that. So next, we covered ejecting the magazine, clearing the chamber, locking the slide out of battery, which is part of locking the whole system there with clearing the weapon. Now, next, basic pistol operation. We just scroll my list here so I don't skip anything. In the idea of dry fire practice, you also are making sure that you are practicing a proper grip, whether you're using a one-handed grip or a two-handed grip, like so. Whether your thumbs are forward or your thumbs are up, it's still a two-handed grip. That's the surface area you're looking for and proper finger placement. In addition to gripping that, you can work on aiming. Like we talked about earlier in a previous video, aiming is the process of first getting your eye aligned with the front sight and the rear sight. That's called sight alignment. Then taking the sight alignment and adding the target, called sight picture, but not misaligning yourself in the process. So you never sacrifice sight alignment for sight picture. I talked about locking your neck and shoulders like a tank turret as you turn to never lose your sight alignment as you maneuver around the room where you're practicing. You could also work on trigger operation, learning how to take up the slack ahead of time before firing your shot, learning how to operate the trigger without moving the pistol up, down, left, or right, proper finger placement of your trigger finger. You can practice inserting loaded magazines, whether you're inserting it simply like this before firing a shot, or whether you're doing a tactical reload practice. You have a place somewhere on your body where you're likely storing extra ammunition stored in magazines. How fast can you reliably and accurately eject one magazine and load the next magazine from wherever you happen to have it placed on your body? That's tactical reloading, which is also a valuable dry fire skill. You can practice your presentation, be it one-handed, two-handed. You might have the extended type shooting position, or perhaps you're going to practice a compressed firing position where you're under attack. You have one hand forward here, and this is drawn under your pectoral at a low angle, not quite 45 degrees, more like about 30 degrees down, which represents a centered abdominal shot on your attacker or threat, which you need to eliminate. This hand protects you from attack. This one's down here, and as you fire a couple of shots, you can then begin backing away, and then once you're out of one hand's reach, which is take a step forward, reach, and grab your gun. If you're within that reach, stay compressed. If you're further than that, you can begin reaching out with your pistol and extending your arms to begin using more of your sights. You can also work on the shooting itself, aiming, breathing, all these things. You can practice doing these things as all part of dry fire practice. In addition, you can practice drawing. You want to have a consistent draw, so you want to have a good holster. You want to have a good belt. It doesn't allow the holster to move or tilt or cant. So every time you reach for your pistol, that handle is in the same place every time. As you draw your pistol, it comes out. You've got a reliable, usable grip on the pistol with your master hand. It's established. You could fire from there if you had to. Fingers indexed. If you're going to be two-hand, you're going to meet in the middle, compress, then stand out, and then you're ready for your shot. You can work on your presentation, your shooting. Now, as far as aiming, there are 3 types of aiming involved. Now, I'll see if I can put a shot up here really quick. There are 3 methods of aiming a pistol. There's what's called sighted, front sight focus. There's what's called flash sighting. And then there's point and shoot. Think of them as a spectrum. They're not so much clear divisions. Sighted is very, very precise sight alignment, sight picture. It's the kind of thing you frequently do at a range or long distance shooting, where you have lots of time for a precise shot. If someone is coming at you and you've got 2 or 3 seconds in order to be able to access pistol, draw, present, and eliminate your threat or slow them down, you may have to resort to what's called flash sighting, which is sort of like is very quickly getting a blurred vision of your sights and your intended target or threat to eliminate. And what you see is, for lack of better words, good enough. It's not a precise shot. The sights might be off an inch or two in any given direction, but it's good enough for a center mass shot on the target. That's called flash sighting. The other one is called point shooting, which for short distance, I can aim at something right from my hip and take a shot, and within, say, 10 feet, reliably land within 3 to 4 inches of my target. That's called point shooting. You can practice all of these and increase your effectiveness in these shooting methods. So once again, here's the spectrum: sighted, flash sight, and point and shoot. These are on a spectrum because they're not clearly delineated. It's the amount of distance between you and the attacker, the speed of the attacker, that tells you how much time you have to respond and at least get your first shot to protect yourself. It's the time that determines what you have to do. That's the idea of these 3 different aiming methods, and you practice all 3. So you have them locked in when it's time to use them. You can't expect them to be there if you haven't practiced them, because your response under stress is going to be the worst of your practice sessions. Which means if you haven't practiced at all, you really don't have much to offer. You are hoping you will somehow transform into Rambo because you're under attack. And it doesn't work that way. The people who have been under attack testify to this. If they don't practice, they've got nothing to offer. If you do practice, then the worst of your practice is what you have to offer, which is even more incentive to practice more often. So the worst of your practice is better than it used to be. Make sense? Okay. So, when it comes to basic defense shooting, we're basically going to focus on 3 skills: your grip, your aim, and trigger control, because you're not going to have time for breathing. You're not going to really have a lot of time to check your stance either, because you could be defending yourself from a seated position, a prone position, on your back, on your stomach. You could be injured. Your actual firing hand could be damaged and you have to shoot with your support hand. These are all things to dry fire practice. And when I talk about dry fire practice, I'm not talking about 10, 20 repetitions and like, wow, I hit the target 15 out of 20 times. I got this locked in. I'm suggesting hundreds of repetitions. Vary it. Change it up so you don't get so bored, but change what you're practicing. Do 100 repetitions of this and then of that and then of something else and come back to something the following day. And you're trying to burn it into muscle memory so it's there when your survival system needs it as a burnt-in, baked-in skill you can rely upon. All right, we're going to come back and we're going to talk about more information about benefits of dry fire training. Until then, practice, practice, practice. Don't practice until you get it right. Practice until you don't get it wrong. Now you know you've locked something in. Otherwise, what you're saying is successful practice. It's more like luck. I don't like relying on luck. I want to rely on skill. So I practice skill. Once again, confidence through competence. You'll know you can do it because you've done it. All right, signing off for now. This is Dave, 21st Century Minuteman. Practice, practice, practice. And you've got it when you need it.